I got it. Jason?
Buddy.
All right. What topic do we got today?
Oh, I'll just pick one. Reach in the hat. About batteries.
Batteries. Yeah, a little bit about them. So I actually got a call today about like how to store a battery and stuff like that, which I don't worry too much about that stuff. I just use the collars and charge them, but I don't have too many battery issues. These batteries, it's not like the old NiCad batteries where you had to, they had a memory as much.
Right.
But
you're talking like lithium ion.
Yeah, the Garmin batteries are all LiPo batteries, so lithium ion batteries, right?
Except the 430, right? It's nickel metal.
Yep.
Yeah.
The 430 has that one, but on the collars they have that LiPo, and so this is the you see some of these pictures of the collars catching on fire and stuff like that, which is it's a bad deal. Like it is one thing that a lot of people don't realize is it's not necessarily a fault of Garmin. You know what I mean? Like you look
it's a risk of a battery.
Yeah, these batteries, these LiPo batteries that we're using, have a really if you're using RC cars and stuff like that, same type of risk. If they cannot be kept in a safe manner, they'll catch on fire. You know what I mean? Like if they get too hot, if they get too cold, if they can't regulate their temperature, it's kind of like a runaway temperature deal. So
that's wild.
Yeah,
I've seen pictures, but actually saw one for the first time last time I was up in the shop.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Mike had one in there.
Yeah. So if they swell or anything like that, which we don't get to see them a lot, but it's a lot of it's caused what they call like a thermal runaway. And so if I look at it and go, okay, a thermal runaway happens when the conditions are met that cause the reactions to occur and cannot easily be stopped. And so most of the times when we see one of those collars that had caught on fire, it's because a cougar or a coyote or something has bitten that collar and punctured and hit and nicked where the battery is. And so they short out that battery. And once that battery kind of shorts, it causes maybe a little arc or whatever. And so it generates heat. And then it starts building this heat up. And that battery just continues to just put the heat and more heat and more heat and more heat until it catches the plastic or whatever on fire, right? And so
like a runaway diesel.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah, diesel or even the electric. I mean, you see these Teslas or whatever. You see, this Tesla caught on fire. Like, that's a really big concern for all these electric vehicles coming from the electronics world.
Right.
Like the fire departments, you know what I mean? If you go into the fire department, you ask them, well, what do you guys do about these electric cars? I guarantee you they're like, it's not good. You know what I mean? It takes a lot more water. It takes a lot more effort to put these because there's just so much energy stored in these batteries. I say little batteries. In a car, it's a big battery, but they're using a lot more energy, right? So the amount of energy in the small package is relative. What the dog collar needs to do, our TT15X collar needs to do, is a lot different than what a Tesla needs to do. You know what I mean? A Tesla needs to push a motor that runs a couple 1,000 pounds worth of stuff on the road. This dog collar,
we're sending a beep.
Yeah. But the technology of the battery is the same, meaning the capacity that this little, the amount of punch, it's like, it's like a 22 shell. You know what I mean? A 22 gun has the powder. The powder is the same bang. There's just more of it in a bigger case.
Sure.
So that's a big, it's a safety thing that people need to recognize that if an animal does bite that collar and damage it, it can cause, thermal runaway and can definitely cause a fire or whatever on the dog, and it's dangerous. You know what I mean? So it's just one of those things. If you see that happen on a dog, you need to get the collar off. I don't know what the answer is, if the collar burns off or, at least melts so that the collar strap comes off or whatever.
Man, I don't even want to see that. I bet it would take so much heat to melt through that nylon.
It might. Like I said, I don't know. It's a scary
I wouldn't problem. Want it to happen.
We're going to lose you.
You got me?
Yep, I got you.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah. Are we recording?
I just let it roll.
All right. I'm back. I'm on generator now. Generator and Starlink. Elon Musk talking about.
Speaking of Teslas.
Speaking of Tesla.
How's that working out?
Don't talk back about Tesla.
Yeah, don't even. You guys got some crazy wins, huh?
Yeah,
we do too.
We've been losing power and all sorts of stuff, but this is the third time today we've lost power. But testing that new generator out. I put a generator a couple of years ago to prepare for the doomsday, and we're using it today. It's kind of cool that you can still with the Starlink we can be back up and running. So
that's pretty cool.
So anyways, we were talking about the thermal runaway. I don't know the answer. I know if guys are really worried about it, we do sell collar covers, which are basically protection. They're I don't know, is it polypropylene or whatever, but it's basically the same material that a cutting board is made out of that makes a cover for that Garmin. And so, like, I don't personally worry about it. It is a risk that I just accept. But if guys are concerned with that and want to protect against that, we do have a solution for that, which is our collar covers. They fit over the top of the collar, and if an animal did try and bite that, it should give it a lot more protection to stop that battery from getting damaged and pierced and bad things that happen from that. So,
right.
Do you know how much those collar covers are? I think like 20 something bucks or something.
They weren't bad. I can pull them up real quick.
Yeah. I would. We have two different types. We have them for the DC-30s, and then we have them for the TT-15s and stuff like that. So yeah, $19.99.
Well, you've got the factory ones too, even like the FlexBand sheath holders. Like those offer some level of protection too.
Yeah, I don't know how those will protect the wire. I don't think they might.
Some of them encase the whole battery housing. Like I wouldn't think on a lion, but like maybe a coyote or a cat, it might help out a little bit. But the hard ones that you're talking about for the TT-15s, well, they're all of them, T10, T5, TT-15s. They're $19.99. And they come with that reinforcement piece. There's like a plastic piece that runs up the GPS chip too, and
yeah, that's so what this was designed for was hogs that were cutting these wires, hogs and different things. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think that FlexBand sheath and that part of it is that protects that wire that goes between the two boxes. There's the battery box on the bottom, and there's the GPS chip on top. And so that wire gets damaged, and then the collar doesn't function. And so it just doesn't work. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like protecting that collar is definitely worthwhile investment, and hog hunters have to do that quite a bit. You know what I mean? So they seem to damage those wires more often. What's that?
They are rough on gear, man.
Yeah. Those
guys.
But this issue, I'd say happens more from like cougars, or coyotes or whatever. And what's happening here is that battery box is getting smashed. And most of the time, it doesn't hit it in a spot where the battery is, right? Mm-hmm. But the ones that I have seen, so I had some take a look at that were smoking or got heat or melted or whatever. You know what I mean? Like it's not a full on like fire, but there was definitely a lot of undue heat there that was dangerous for the dog. When I looked at those collars, every one of them had a tooth mark in the battery. And it may have been a small one. It didn't take much, but that battery was dented or something so that it compressed that battery. And then once that battery got compressed, it couldn't keep up with its heat management, so it started creating heat. And then it just ran away until you basically have a little ignition source and it just keeps, spinning heat there. So that's one issue with the batteries. That's a danger. It's one that honestly it would be hard to sleep if that would happen. You know what I mean? Like that's one that again, I don't want to go buy a collar cover, whatever. I'm not I'm not saying that. I don't run those collar covers,
Right.
If I ever had this happen, I probably would. You know what I mean? Like I probably would. So it's just one of those things. It's like, man, if you want to be proactive, that's the best solution I can offer you. You know what I mean? Doesn't mean that's what I'm doing, but it just
protect that battery.
Yeah. If that's something that you don't want happening, and maybe I should just be a better salesman and be like, you need to get this or else blah, 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 and play doomsday. But
don't be a car salesman.
No, but I will sell the heck out. But anyways, it's just a tough deal because you got somebody that just had a fire on the bottom of the dog's neck and they are pissed. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, honestly, they, and it's kind of like, well, that's just the risk we're doing here. There's no other way short of going with like those batteries that don't have the capacity. You know what I mean? You go with a NiCad battery or one of those alkyne batteries that used to be in the wildlife. And so you get a couple hours. What we're doing now, you'd get maybe, a day or two, and you'd have to be switching batteries. You know what I mean? So it's a catch-22. It's what it takes to do the things that we're asking Garmin to do. And there's just no other batteries. And again, it's not a problem that's just alone in our industry. It's not just this happens in RC car races. You know what I mean? Like everybody, when my boy goes to these different RC car races, they're always like, if there's a battery fire, you get the battery outside the building because we do it in the school gym. Mm-hmm. And so everybody there is really, they just know that these batteries can catch on fire. And the more you're around them, and again, we're around them all the time. We're using them every day. The more risk we have to see a fire. You still got me good? I watched the lights flicker, so they might have flipped over the generator. Cool.
Well, and a telltale sign. I mean, there is a little warning, at least on like some of the collars, right? The flashing red light on charge is a good indicator of like some kind of charging issue, right? Or a battery like component issue.
Yeah. So when we're looking at so now let's talk about the most egregious problem, which is that fire deal, which I wanted to touch base on that. But
sure.
So there's some things we can do. So a lot of times when we see lights flashing when we put it on charge, issues. So we'll see, the red light's flashing when we put it on charge. A lot of times, my first thing is the battery too cold or is it too hot?
Yeah.
So it might be the computer chip saying, hey, the temperature of this battery is not safe to charge. So if you take collar batteries and you stick them in your dashboard in the sun and they get really hot, number one, it's dangerous for the collar because, like I said, there's lipos and you want to keep them as close to a safe temperature as possible. So sticking them in open sun is not a good thing, and it's damaging for the battery. But the charger will not charge that battery if the temperature is not right. And so if the temperature is too warm, so if that battery's been sitting in the sun, it's not going to charge, right? So you just need to let that thing go to room temperature, and then you can put it on the charger and it'll charge. It'll also do the same thing if the battery's too cold. So, you know what I mean? Like if the battery's too cold, it won't charge. So it wants to be in this temperature range. And I don't know what the temperature range is, but room temperature. And
most people never run into it. Like even in a shop in cold climate, like if you have an insulated shop, it's usually warm enough to keep them from doing that. But I mean, I've had mine do it. You get down into the 20s and they don't want to charge for sure.
Yep. So that part of it is, if you see the light flashing on charge, that's the first thing you need to think about is what's the temperature of that battery. So, what's the other? So I'll tell you some of the pros and cons of LiPo batteries and why we went from nickel metal hydrates. So the LiPo batteries are a lot more lightweight and they're smaller packaging. You know what I mean? So that's the nice thing. That's why, for the amount of size and the amount of punch you get, the capacity of the charge, you just can't beat a LiPo battery. You know what I mean? Like that's at least right now, that's what is the best thing. And then they can also, more discharge rate. You can use more of the battery, you know what I mean? Whereas the other batteries, you can use up to like half of it or whatever. LiPos can go down even further than normal. So the other thing is they charge super fast.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't take, remember those phones, you take 12 hours or 24 hours to charge something. With these collars, we can charge them in 2 hours, 4 hours or whatever. So, now the cons, they have a short lifespan. LiPo batteries average about 150 to 250 cycles. The sensitive chemistry can lead to a fire if the battery gets punctured. So that part we talked about. And there's a special need for charging, discharging, and storage. So those are basically the pros and cons of the batteries we're using. And it's just a game of math. I mean, like, again, it kind of comes down to the technology that we're putting on these dogs. It's not magic, you know what I mean? Like there's things that we have to do, and give and take. And so anyways,
would you like ever recommend doing a battery as a maintenance item? Like, you got a truck, you do a timing belt on it, like if you're saying 150 charge cycles, like is there, for guys that are hunting regular, I mean, is there a time where you would say, hey, you might think about doing some preventative maintenance or just wait till it goes bad?
You want the lawyer answer?
Yeah. Give that one first, then we'll get the real one.
Yeah. Like you should probably inspect your batteries every season.
Every time you use
swelling. if like an RC car, you're looking at that battery. When it starts to puff out, that you're on your lifespan of that battery is going to go down. It's a lot harder to see these batteries, puff out when they're sealed, so you don't get to see them as much. You know what I mean? So you'd have to take the collar apart, whatever. The other thing that I've seen a lot of times with DC 50s and TT 10s and TT 15s is when you do replace that battery, it has a little metal clip that presses the battery on
the hold down bracket.
If you looked at one of these batteries, it's not like a circle. It's not like a AA battery. It's like a AA battery with stuff on one side. So it's like an egg. You know what I mean? It's almost like an egg shaped. It's not round. Well, if you don't have that battery in the right position and you put this clamp on it, it presses down on the egg part and that will compress the battery. And I've seen that where the batteries won't work. You know what I mean? Because they're installed wrong. You know what I mean? Like you didn't pay attention and have that egg shape laid down so that it wasn't getting a lot of pressure on it. So little things like that, these batteries are finicky. So if you see double or if you see flashing when you're charging, those are things that you can definitely take a look at. And I would suspect, and I tell people all the time, if it's flashing when you put it on charge, that normally indicates, not always, but it mostly indicates a battery problem. And so the easy thing is the temperature right? Is the collar been too hot or has the collar been too cold? If that's the case, let the temperature get to room temperature and try it again. Then you go from there, you go to the next step. If that doesn't fix it, then why does the collar, the battery may be damaged? And so there's a little computer chip on that battery that won't let that battery charge if it's not safe. And so battery could be damaged. If it's punctured, if you got a puncture hole in that collar and you look at your thing and it's like it's punctured, but guys look at it and go, oh, this collar's fine. I would take that collar apart and look at the battery, specifically look
Gross.
for damage to that battery, because it may be fine today, but it may just take a little bounce or a bump or a jar, and that battery was compromised. It just hasn't failed. And when it does fail, it's going to be catastrophic. Like if you have a puncture on a collar and it's still working fine, I would be extremely careful. Like that would be something that you're playing with fire. Literally. You're maybe you haven't seen it yet, but if it's punctured, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take that thing apart and I'm going to look at the battery. And if it didn't touch the battery, I may even replace the battery or whatever, but you need to be confident that that battery was not compromised. And then I tell people all the time, put some epoxy on the hole. The hole in the casing doesn't bother me. I don't care about the hole in the casing. You can seal that with epoxy or whatever.
Bondo.
What I care about is, was that battery nicked? Was that battery compressed? Was that battery, touched in any way by that tooth? And if the answer is yes,
replace it.
You need to act accordingly. And I don't know what the answer is. And maybe replace the battery, for $40, just peace of mind. Do you want a little mini fire underneath your dog's neck? For me, the answer would be like, no, I want to make sure that whatever. I'd buy, we sell battery cases. We can use battery cases. There's a lot of things we can do for the puncture.
But we do a lot of those.
Yeah. And
there's a lot of collars that get bit.
Yep. Those are, again, if you have that happen, I really encourage you to just take a step back and go, let me look at that a little deeper. Is it superficial, or did it hit that battery? If it hit that battery, just because it didn't start a fire today doesn't mean it's not going to start a fire tomorrow.
Yeah.
Then that could be on the charge. That could be sitting in your bag at work. It could be sitting in your truck. Or the worst possible solution would be, or case it would be, is on your dog while it's out in the middle of the woods and you're not near it. That's horrible to think about. So
yeah, man, that's like stuff nightmares are made out of.
Yep. So, anyways, those are just my thoughts on the batteries. The good, the
correct
bad,
me if I'm wrong, but if guys are changing collar batteries, if they're way behind on updates, they may run into some issues, right?
Yes.
On certain models, TT15s.
Yep, making sure your software is up to date on the handhelds. We stopped offering. We used to sell these extended life batteries for the handhelds, the Alpha 100s. We'd get more juice in them or whatever. And what we were finding and whether Garmin did it intentionally or not, I don't know. But
they squashed that one.
Whenever the software would update, it wouldn't work for these batteries, and so some batteries would work and some batteries wouldn't work. I don't know the details. I don't know if it was the computer chip. I don't know if it was Garmin being dirty and being like, you got to only use their batteries. I don't know, but it's kind of hard to tell Garmin to be like, hey, we want to sell these aftermarket batteries, and they're like, why don't you just sell Garmin battery? I don't know the answer.
That's so mind blowing though. Like from not a technical person, like you're from a technical background. I'm from School Hard Knocks and beat it into my head. Like you think about what they can do with software updates. I love getting people on the phone that, we'll go through troubleshooting procedures and you can tell they're like fully doubting this. Like you're just having me jump through a stupid hoop here.
Right.
But yeah, it is crazy what an update can affect down to if your battery chip is going to register correctly and function in a unit. It's nuts.
Yep.
Thanks.
And it's tough because Garmin, if let's say they put a battery in there that's not safe, you know what I mean? Because it's either cheap or it has more capacity or whatever. I'm not going to say it's right or wrong. You know what I mean? I'm not saying, because we sold them. Like we sold the extended life batteries and stuff like that. But as you look at it from, let's just say a legal standpoint or a corporate standpoint, is like, okay, if that battery fails and it horribly kills a dog, you know what I mean? Is that guy going to go to the China guy and be like, hey, your China battery, caused this issue? Nope. Or are they going to go, the Garmin collar, you know what I mean? Like they're going to go, this Garmin collar. They're not going to realize, well, I put that other battery, so it gets really technical sometimes. And I'm not a safety guy. You know what I mean? Like I'm not a overly, OSHA, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But
Don't say that. They're listening.
I'm gonna shut it
Don't
down.
come to 1418.
hey, let's beep that out. But on the flip side, I understand. I used to work at Intel and I was on the emergency team and blah blah blah. And you had all this there was so much red tape sometimes.
Yeah.
That lockout, tag out, and you couldn't do this, and you had what I mean, like
you couldn't even.
It can be overdone. You know what I mean? Like it could definitely be overdone. And sometimes the big companies overdo it. And so I'm just like, half of me is like, let's just get this shit done. Let's just, go grab a hammer, go grab a saw. We can cut this out here. We don't have to spend, $100,000 to do this one job. We can kind of redneck this shit and make it happen.
Right.
And then on the flip side, sometimes that redneck shit goes wrong. You know what I mean? Like, well, that wasn't
just
such
right
a good
at the
idea.
end. It goes good, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So you know what I mean? Like I just kind of play it neutral a little bit. It's like, yeah, there's sometimes we make decisions to sell those batteries. There's sometimes I don't. And then when I stop and think about it or I get questioned about it, I'm like, that's a good point. You know what I mean? Like, okay, like Garmin's trying to make these things as safe as possible to go on dogs. And it's easy to go, well, they just make it so it doesn't work. I'm like, yeah, maybe
fail safe in a way.
Maybe there's a little bit of both. Maybe it is a little bit of the profit and maybe it's a little bit of the safety. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you can use the excuse on either way you want. And I'm not going to judge. I'm just going to report it. So anyways, that's a little deal about batteries.
Oh, yeah. Well, I know, I got one question.
Yeah.
I think I touched on it earlier, but it might've got messed up when you lost power there. So I see all these guys in photos with collars turned around backwards, and it always bewilders me because it makes no sense to have tracer lights facing your dog, the beeping light.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard they're doing that to keep them from arcing out on like the center O-ring collars or the buckle of their nameplate collar. Is that legit?
So, yeah. So in the TT10 days, the little O-ring on your collar, if it would press the two pins together, it would turn the collar off. So, you got the O-ring
like
collar,
the smooth contact points in the battery housing.
Yeah, where you charge your collar.
Uh-huh.
You could legitimately take a little piece of metal and just touch those, and the collar would shut off. This is a TT10, right?
Right.
They've fixed it, so I don't think that happens.
But like risk of fire, do you think?
No, I mean, well,
lawyer version is
yes. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe, but I've intentionally messed with them when I was testing that, you know what I mean? Because, we found it out and we were like, hey, this is what's happening. So I have intentionally taken a piece of metal and intentionally shorted that stuff together, and I can't make it do anything. I know Garmin has intentionally done that because if that was possible, they are trying to, you know what I mean?
Sure.
I have enough confidence in the guys working on the stuff that if it was that easy to short these things out, they would have changed the casing.
Yeah.
Like they wouldn't run that case if it would be easy, if it was a major problem.
No,
now in the TT10 days, or yes, you run a collar, it touch it off, you'd be like, why did this collar get shut off? You touch these two pins together with the little metal ring that's on the dogs, and that was an issue. So I don't know if they're still, it's an old wives' tale that they've heard, and it's a real thing that happened. And if they just still do it because they don't know, it don't matter. I mean,
they're 3 generations down though on technology and still using the same setup. So I would imagine.
But here's the deal:
fixed it.
I'm not going to be the guy that goes turn that collar around, and then all of a sudden something happens, and now, oh, buddy told me I didn't have to. You know what I mean? Like this is where I'm like,
worried about getting sued, man.
Well, I just don't want to. I don't want to be overly confident in my answer. Like I know for me, I run them normal. Like
I too.
and I've taken metal and I've touched them and my knife or my ring or whatever I could do to try to make those things shut off or do anything weird. And I can't do it anymore. I used to. You give me a TT10 with old software, shut it off every time. You know what I mean? No problem. I don't know what software version it was, but you get a TT10 that has the current software on it, it shouldn't happen. You know what I mean? Like they
wild.
fixed that issue. It was an issue. And so sometimes things get fixed, but the message that they got fixed never goes back around, or people don't trust it or whatever. And so that's my 2 cents. I'm sticking with it.
You do you.
Yeah. You want to run the color backwards? Run that damn thing backwards.
I like my headlights.
I'm not gonna.
I got to run it the other way.
Yeah. So I see the same thing, but I'm not. Again, I try not to tell people how to run their stuff. You know what I mean? I try to educate them, and they can make their own decision. There's guys put a little piece of tape on that thing, but you know, a little piece of electrical tape, a collar cover. $19.99. That'll cover those things up too. And then if they won't get bit, you know what I mean? That's another way to do it.
It's always the same port that gets screwed up. That second one in.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that?
Because it's the charging part of it. It does there's some kind of mechanical, electrical issue. It's kind of like an electrical connection or whatever. So, but yeah, a little bit of cleaning those ports and stuff like that, getting good charge resistive connections, stuff, things like that. That'll help. You know, that I guess we're talking about batteries. We need to wrap this up because I'm already at 5 minutes over my hard stop.
Your hard stop, I know.
It was at 3:30 now, or 15 minutes over.
Well, it's good.
If you get a caller that doesn't, there it goes. Lights flashing again. If you get a caller that doesn't fully charge, if it stays red, a lot of times that's needs just to be a cleaned connector, the charge clip or the little metal parts that make the charger. If you clean those and maybe a little Brillo pad or gently, don't try to rub them off too rough, but they'll make a little thin film of oxidation, and that'll sometimes make it where it doesn't go green on the collar charging.
Just keep them clean and check where your charger plugs into your charging clip too. Mm-hmm. If it's not something you unhook a lot, I've seen quite a few of them like get corrosion or whatever, and that cause issues too. Yeah. So if if your collar never goes to green, but when you take it out and you look at it on the Alpha, it's going to show full charge. Yeah. That's normally a dirty connector. The charge port is just, and you might not even see the dirt. It might just be a really thin layer of oxidation, and that's enough to build a little resistive connection. So can you use like a dielectric grease or something on that to like help protect it? A little bit of vinegar sometimes, would help take that stuff off, those things like that. So the more you know. Exactly. All right, Jason, I'm going to get out of here. Have a good night. Enjoy hunting. Sounds good.